Start. Here are the threats. Queen takes knight. Queen takes pawn. Here are checks in puzzle position. Queen to c8, check. Queen to d7, check. Queen to g2, check. Queen to h1, check. Here is the solution to the puzzle. Queen to h1, check. Queen to h2. Queen takes queen, check. King takes queen. Rook to f2, check. King to h3. Rook takes bishop. Let's continue. Let us look at threats in puzzle position. Queen takes pawn. The checks are queen to e4, check. Answer to this puzzle is queen to e4, check. Bishop to e2. Bishop to a6. Another one. Threats in this position are queen takes knight, check. Queen takes pawn. Queen takes pawn. Knight takes pawn. Here are checks in puzzle position. Queen takes knight, check. Knight to f6, check. Here is the solution to the puzzle. Queen to g5. Next puzzle, let us look at threats in puzzle position. Rook takes knight. Pawn takes pawn. Rook takes pawn. Queen takes pawn, check. Queen takes pawn. Let us look at checks in puzzle position. Queen takes pawn, check. Queen to e3, check. The answer is queen to e3, check. King to h1. Rook takes knight. One more. Let us look at threats in puzzle position. Queen takes pawn. Here are the checks. Queen to g1, check. Here is the solution to the puzzle. Queen to e3. Queen to h8, check. King takes queen. Next, threats in puzzle position are. There are no threats in this position. The checks are rook to a8, check. Answer to this puzzle is b7. Rook to b1. Rook to a8, check. One more. Puzzle position vulnerabilities are knight takes pawn. There are no checks in this position. Here is the solution to the puzzle. h5. Rook to g7. Pawn takes bishop. Next puzzle. Puzzle position vulnerabilities are pawn takes pawn. Pawn takes pawn. Queen takes pawn. Queen takes pawn, check. The checks are f6, check. Queen to e5, check. Queen takes pawn, check. Queen to c3, check. The answer is queen takes pawn, check. King to h8. Queen takes pawn, check. Next puzzle, the threats are bishop takes pawn. Queen takes pawn, check. Queen takes queen, check. Queen takes rook. Queen takes pawn. Here are checks in puzzle position. Queen takes pawn, check. Queen to e3, check. Queen to f2, check. Queen to g1, check. Queen to d2, check. Queen takes queen, check. Queen to c3, check. Queen to b4, check. The answer is queen to c3, check. King to f2. Rook takes queen. Let's continue. The threats are rook takes knight. Queen takes pawn. Queen takes knight, check. Queen takes knight. Checks in puzzle position are knight to a5, check. Knight to e5, check. Queen to c5, check. Queen to b6, check. Queen takes knight, check. The puzzle is solved using knight to e5, check. King to c7. Queen to c5, check. Let's see the next puzzle. Threats in puzzle position are rook takes pawn. Rook takes rook. There are no checks in this position. Here is the solution to the puzzle. b7. Bishop to e5. Rook takes pawn. Another one. The threats are queen takes pawn. Knight takes pawn. Pawn takes bishop. There are no checks in this position. The answer is pawn takes bishop. Pawn takes queen. Pawn takes queen. Another puzzle. Puzzle position vulnerabilities are rook takes bishop. Queen takes pawn, check. Let us look at checks in puzzle position. Queen takes pawn, check. Queen to c1, check. Answer to this puzzle is rook takes bishop. h4. Queen to f5. Pawn takes rook. Queen takes rook. Let us go to the next puzzle. The threats are knight takes pawn. Bishop takes pawn. Checks in this position are rook to d8, check. The answer is rook to d8, check. Rook to e8. Rook takes rook, check. King takes rook. Knight to c7, check. King to e7. Knight takes rook. Another one. Here are threats in puzzle position. Bishop takes pawn, check. Bishop takes knight. Here are checks in puzzle position. Bishop takes pawn, check. Queen to e8, check. Answer to this puzzle is bishop takes knight. Bishop takes pawn, check. King takes bishop. Another puzzle. Here are threats in puzzle position. Rook takes pawn. Rook takes pawn. Rook takes bishop, check. The checks are rook takes bishop, check. Rook to e2, check. Rook to c1, check. The answer is rook to e2, check. Next, the threats are queen takes rook. Queen takes pawn. Knight takes pawn, check. Here are the checks. Queen to a7, check. Queen to b6, check. Knight takes pawn, check. Knight to h1, check. The answer is knight takes pawn, check. Another puzzle. Let us look at threats in puzzle position. Queen takes pawn. Checks in this position are bishop to e7, check. Bishop to f6, check. Bishop to g5, check. Bishop to h4, check. Bishop to c7, check. Bishop to b6, check. Bishop to a5, check. Answer to this puzzle is bishop to e7, check. Bishop to f8. Queen takes bishop, checkmate. Let us go to the next puzzle. The threats are king takes bishop. There are no checks in this position. Here is the solution to the puzzle. King takes bishop. a5. Bishop to a7. Let's continue. Here are the threats. Pawn takes pawn. Queen takes knight. Bishop takes pawn. Here are the checks. Queen to f7, check. Queen to h7, check. Queen to h8, check. The best move in puzzle position is knight to f4. Let us go to the next puzzle. Threats in this position are pawn takes rook. There are no checks in this position. Solution to the puzzle is pawn takes rook. Bishop takes queen. Bishop takes queen. Let us go to the next puzzle. Threats in this position are queen takes pawn. Queen takes knight, check. Rook takes pawn, check. Let us look at checks in puzzle position. Queen to c3, check. Queen to d7, check. Queen takes knight, check. Rook takes pawn, check. Rook to c1, check. The puzzle is solved using queen to c3, check. King to d6. Queen takes rook. Another puzzle. Threats in puzzle position are there are no threats in this position. Checks in this position are rook to f8, check. Rook to a5, check. Solution to the puzzle is rook to a5, check. King to f6. Rook takes pawn. Another one. Puzzle position vulnerabilities are knight takes bishop. Queen takes pawn. Bishop takes pawn. Checks in puzzle position are knight to e7, check. Queen to f7, check. Queen to d5, check. The answer is knight to e7, check. King to h7. Queen to g6, check. King to h8. Rook to g1. Queen takes rook. Queen takes queen. Another puzzle. Let us look at threats in puzzle position. Queen takes pawn, check. Queen takes bishop, check. Knight takes pawn, check. The checks are queen takes pawn, check. Queen to c6, check. Queen to d7, check. Queen takes bishop, check. Knight takes pawn, check. The puzzle is solved using b4, a6, queen to a4. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.